So YouTubers, Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to you, and today we went to the range, and we all have different reasons for going to the range. Sometimes we go just to have a good time. So we spend the money, we get all our gear together, and we shoot for recreational purposes, and nothing wrong with that. That's fun. Sometimes we go to shoot with friends, or even people who perhaps really don't shoot, and we're being ambassadors for the shooting sports and for our Second Amendment rights. And so we take people who are non-shooters to the range, and invariably they have a good time. And that's a good reason to go to the range. But sometimes when we go all by ourselves, we have to have some reasons to really make that trip worthwhile. So usually we're doing some kind of research or test, or we're developing our skills, we're testing some kind of technique, seeing if it works for us. We're comparing guns, we're checking accuracy, the functioning, to make sure that our weapons are ready whenever we need them, for whatever purpose. And so I'd like to recommend that your defense guns, whether it be a home defense gun and or a concealed carry weapon, firearm, that we need to actually take those out and use them regularly, because we don't want any surprises, and we want to be able to almost use them without having to really think about how they work and how they work for us. So today you'll notice that on the left hand side there are 30 carbine. Practice ammo, we have the Tula 110 grain full metal jacket. And then the purpose ammo is this very fine 110 grain soft point, loaded to maximum velocity for 30 carbine, loaded by the Bitterroot Valley Ammunition Company, sold by Cheaper Than Dirt. And this is $24 for 50. And they're very good. They're close to 2,000 feet per second with expanding bullets, and you get 50 of them for the $24, which is a good buy. So typically, to take the carbine out at least once a month, and the first ammunition to be fired would be the purpose ammo. So 15 rounds of the purpose ammo were taken out and fired first for function testing, to make sure that we can rely on the carbine when necessary. But then we can continue with the full metal jacket steel case Tula ammo, because it's very inexpensive, $12 for 50. And that's very reasonable for shooting a carbine. So today we took the carbine out. And we enjoyed shooting the carbine at the range. Now some people complain that their carbines jam. And certainly if your home defense gun jams, that is not good. So I'm pleased to report that this particular carbine did not jam at all, and we fired 45 rounds so that we can have confidence in the carbine. Now, the other reason we went to the range was to explore the 22, the 38, and the 45 long Colt. Having trouble focusing there. Now certainly if the 22 and the 38 and the 45 long Colt all shoot the same kind of groups at the different ranges, then why shoot the bigger caliber? Why not just simply practice with the 22 strictly? So we did a little test with 3 very similar revolvers. So we took this case to the range, and the first thing we did was we shot 25 yards. It's a good distance to test performance. And the 22 was represented by the Ruger Super Single 6. Single action revolver, and is very fun to shoot, and certainly is also very applicable for field use against small game, plinking. Very fun revolver, and the ammunition is very inexpensive. So we shot the 22 at the range, and it turned in decent groups at 25 yards. So then the 38 was represented by the Ruger 357 Blackhawk, which shoots 38s interchangeably. And this gun functions just like the Super Single 6, just a little bit larger frame, but the grip is the same grip frame, just that this frame part is larger. And it shot groups very similar to the 22, with the 38 158 grain standard velocity ammunition. So you start to think, well, what's the purpose of shooting the 38? Why not just practice with the 22? So then we took out the 45 long Colt with the 255 grain round nose flat point bullets with 8 grains of unique. So this is like a plus P load. And it was represented by the Ruger Blackhawk with a 5.5 inch barrel. And it functions, this Ruger functions and works the same as the Super Single 6 and the 357 Blackhawk. And lo and behold, it shot groups at 25 yards, two-hand hold, offhand. It shot groups just like the 22, just like the 357 or 38 Special. So the question then again is, why shoot the bigger calibers? They're more expensive, and they group the same trigger pull. Why not just shoot the 22, which is much less expensive to shoot? So here's what we did at the range today. Okay, shooting the 30 carbine with 2 110 grain full metal jacket ammo from 25 yards off.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I was wondering how you got it out without using a bullet. I have a feeling the rest of the bullet button fell apart.
So the lowest shot there on the right actually called shot. That wasn't a good shot, but that's not bad performance. So YouTubers, we're at the range and we shot the 22 Super Single 6 at 25 yards, offhand, two-hand hold. And then we moved up to the 357 Blackhawk, 4 and 5 barrel, 38 special standard velocity loads at 25 yards, two-hand, offhand. Now let's look at the targets. Shot the 22 Super Single 6 right-hand target, 6 rounds, and then we shot the Blackhawk 357 4 and 5/8 inch barrel on the left-hand target. Again, 25 yards, two-hand hold it on the hand. So you notice with the 357 shooting the 38 special, though, there was one flyer. Bad shot by the shooter. Otherwise, the group sizes are the same. Okay, so YouTubers, now we took out the 45 Colt Ruger Blackhawk. This 45 Colt Blackhawk is a 5.5 inch barrel, Ajax grip. You've seen this one before. And we just fired 6 rounds at 25 yards, two-hand hold, with a pretty stiff load of 8 grains of unique and a 255 grain round nose flat point bullet. By the way, the shooter 2 down to the right from me was shooting a 460 Smith & Wesson, so these 3 brass casings on the ground, and I picked them up just so you can see the difference between a 460 Smith & Wesson and a 45 long Colt case. So the 460 Smith & Wesson is actually a 45 caliber, but it's really on steroids. Anyway, here's what we did at 25 yards. So we'll look at the targets next. Target on the right was shot with a 30 carbine, offhand at 25 yards, using the Tula Russian steel case 110 grain ammo. Target on the left was shot with the Ruger Blackhawk 45 Colt with the 255 grain round nose flat point bullets, two-hand hold, offhand, 8 grains of bullet. Pretty stiff load, but it's fun and pretty accurate, so gives you the idea of how accurate a Ruger Blackhawk is at 25 yards. And once again, on the left here are the 38 specials shot with the Ruger Blackhawk 357 shooting the 38 special standard velocity loads. And the target on the right was shot with the 22 long rifle Ruger Super Single 6. So all these are shot 25 yards, 2 hands, offhand. Equal performance if you look at it. So YouTubers, The Ruger line of single action pistols is certainly very well designed line, because what you have here are single actions that all have the same size grip frame, all have the same action, the same features, the same sights, and the same trigger pull. If anyone knows how to use the Ruger Super Single 6, they can shoot any of the Blackhawks. Any of them. Including the Super Blackhawks, including the Bisleys. Because they all work the same. So, Bill Ruger has something of an ingenious design there. It's kind of like the same idea of the Glock. All the Glock pistols work the same way. They take the same magazines. They have the same functioning, the same feel. And even though they're different calibers, they work very well that way. And the Ruger Blackhawk line is the same kind of thinking. In fact, this came first. The idea of, so you look at the similarities between all of these. Quite amazing. So there they are, and they're very popular, very durable, and very fine firearms. So YouTubers, welcome back. We got back from the range and we cleaned everything up, put away all of our brass, and put away all of our range lead, cleaned all the weapons, the 4 weapons that we use today, the 3 revolvers and the M1 carbine. And so now let's think about what we talked about, and that is the 22. Certainly practicing with a 22 is a good idea. It's not expensive, and the gun works the same way as the other revolvers. Or whether you're using an automatic pistol, it can be the same as a 1911 or a Glock or a SIG or a Walther or whatever you want to use. They have 22s that will companion for those, and you can do a lot of your practicing with a 22. The problem is that the tendency is just like at the range today. Very busy day at the range. The 18 stations that we had there at the range, there was a time when all 18 were in use, and the whole afternoon there were at most maybe 3 open stations. But there were 3 women shooting to my left, and the gentleman that brought them was letting them shoot his 22s. And I watched this, and he spent all of his time loading magazines so that the women could keep shooting and emptying the magazines. He almost couldn't load them fast enough. So there's the problem. When people shoot 22s, they tend to squirt them out and not really work on trigger control, but rather they're just jerking the trigger or slapping at the trigger and just shooting fast. And the bullets are hitting a large impact area at the target, whether it's 12 yards away or 25 yards away. The 3 women were shooting at 12 yards. And so they were basically burning a lot of ammunition. And were they learning anything? If you put a larger caliber in their hand, would they be able to handle it? So the thing about the 22 is we need to treat the 22 just like we're shooting a larger bore, with the same deliberate fundamentals being applied as our larger calibers. If we do this, the 22 is a very good practice caliber. But if we're going to go out there and just squirt rounds and shoot fast and this kind of thing, but then when we shoot our center fires, we don't shoot the same way, then the 22 is not really giving us the practice that we're looking for. So that's the caution. That's why just shooting the 22 might not be the best idea, because the tendency is to shoot the 22 a lot faster because it's cheap and doesn't recoil. And that's the thing. Recoil must be dealt with. And if we're using a larger caliber because we're doing more than small game hunting, we're using some kind of purpose or even target work, we're going to be dealing with the recoil. And that's where the 38 has a modicum of recoil, but still recoils much more than a 22. And we have to be able to deal with that recoil and not let it cause us to flinch, and not let it cause us to have bad habits with the trigger control, sight picture, anticipation, all of these things. We need to work on these constantly. And that's the reason we go to the range. And that's the reason why we actually need to shoot the center fires. The 22 is fine, but we need to put some time in with the actual center fire rounds. Now 45 long Colt loaded to plus P velocities, this thing will let you know that it's firing a heavy lead bullet, because the recoil is much more pronounced than even the 38. And so we have to learn how to manage that recoil, and that's a very good thing to learn, because if we can manage the recoil of a heavy kicking caliber, even a 44 Magnum, which would be the next step up, if we can manage a 44 Magnum, then we can certainly shoot anything underneath that. But if we only shoot a 22, then it's doubtful that we can handle anything above the 22. Working the other way is fine, but working this way doesn't. It's kind of like driving a standard transmission automobile. If we can work a stick shift, we can sure drive an automatic transmission. But those who only use automatic transmissions may not be able to drive a stick shift. So go with, that's the value of shooting the heavier kicking calibers. And we need to always be practiced in those. So that's why, even though the 22 economy is there, we cannot look at that. We should invest in at least 50 rounds of our center fires every time, or more would even be better, such as 100 or 200 rounds at a time. And the lead bullets let us do that. So YouTubers out there, you have a very nice day, and we'll see you at the range.